Welcome to the Seer Show. Join us as we dive into the dynamic world of health, wellness, mindset, and fitness with the unparalleled guidance of lifelong knowledge seekers, Sifu Rafael and Nikki Gangemi. Sifu and Nikki will unlock groundbreaking insights with extraordinary guests from around the globe. You'll get the latest holistic approaches to well-being with a sharp focus on the powerful connection between mind, body, and soul. Get ready to take the leap. It's time to embrace a brighter and healthier future with us at the Seer Show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, Nikki. How on earth are you?
Good morning, Sifu. I am excellent on earth. How are you?
I am exceptional on earth, and I'm getting better every day. I'm excited for today. We have two incredible human beings. I think I hear them coming down the hallway, so why don't we go ahead and bring them in? Scott, come on in, and Dr. Brian. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
So let's get into it. Mastery, Reignited. Oh my goodness. Who wants to take that? Feel free.
Well, it's got to be ignited before it's reignited. You've got to have a desire to want to have it, right? I think one of the things that some of us more mature, that's code word for older, folks have, is we've been at it for a while, and you hopefully it lends itself to opening up that opportunity of mastery across the years, the experience, the expertise, and the wisdom that you gain.
Yeah, I don't know that mastery is even a thing in my world. I don't believe in that. I think that we can certainly get better and we can certainly improve, but I think about improvement like an asymptote, like they taught us in calculus. You get closer, but you never actually get there.
Yeah.
That's why in martial arts, when people try to call me a master, I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I'm still a white belt. I'm trying to get it together still. So when I hear these people claim themselves as masters and grandmasters, I'm like, wow, I really want to learn from you.
Yeah, that white belt mindset, I think, is important. I think that's a really great thing that martial arts has embedded in it, and that I've heard introduced in other settings as well. It's just that mindset of constant learner, constant beginner, openness to whatever experience and knowledge you might happen to come across, and being willing to change your mind as a result of those new experiences and that new information.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Same. I feel the same way. It's like just when I think I understood something or know something, there's a new level, there's a new awareness, and it's like, how did I not know that? So when I think of mastery reignited, I just think we're always learning, we're always in process. And sometimes we have to reignite or reset in our own mind and be open to learning something in a new way.
I love that. I think of myself almost like a scientist. I'm always looking at in the lab, what can I recreate? What's new coming out, and still doing the research on all, even things that are current. How do they change? Because evolution, right? And that which we think we know now, it's going to change come a couple of years from now, especially in technology. Look what's happening with AI.
Well, that's just it. There's so much new. I've written checks to 19 mentors across my time. It's not like I stopped at one, right? I mean, it is a process of continual learning and continual growth and going through and doing all those things. And especially with technology today. So I somebody introduced me on a show yesterday as a unicorn, unabashedly new school with AI enhanced technology and all those things, with a combination of old school, belly to belly, boots on the ground, face-to-face presentation. It's breadth over time is really what it becomes.
Absolutely. I think I can see you as a unicorn, Scott. I can see you galloping along and going, look at my horn, look at my horn. Be careful, because that can be a very sharp horn. And I don't think that you come across as you would hurt anybody, because the kind of person that I know you to be, you are always looking to help your fellow brothers and sisters. And that's what I believe makes you so dynamic.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think that's why we all been put here, is constantly expand and grow. And that's why I agree with you, Dr. Brian. Mastery is to a certain extent an illusion. It's something to strive for. But the reality is, if nothing else changed around you, maybe you could achieve that. But things are changing all the time. Things are improving. Things are, I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. My generation, we didn't start with cell phones. And, if we were on the telephone in the car, we had a very long wire back to the house. It just didn't work that way. Right. And so you've had to evolve and continue to. So to say that you have arrived is probably a little, maybe even a little arrogant. We all have things that we can learn and grow to.
Mm-hmm.
I usually say I've arrived, but when I go to a location.
Exactly. I would say, I'm here finally.
or when I'm leaving and I let somebody say I'm on my way, that's always important. But when I arrive, that doesn't mean I die. I'm not done. So it's important to understand the arrived version is in trying to master anything. And the beauty of mastering anything is that it's continual. We don't stop because we think we acknowledge or we're at the peak, right? Even when you climb a mountain, if you look over at the horizon, there's probably mountains that are higher or lower. That may be more challenging.
Good point. Mm-hmm. What do you think is, so we're talking about mastery. What do you think is something when it comes to mastery that people overlook? They don't think about it. Thoughts?
A lot of times it's the little things. It's the basics. It's the foundational piece. You can build a 100-story building, but without a foundation, it all crumbles. It's no different in your knowledge or in anything that you're doing. And the one thing that I've noticed over time is people believe that they can build the building without a foundation. It's the same thing. They believe that they can build their career, their knowledge, their this, their that with a whole bunch of shortcuts. And the reality is, there are foundational principles that you learn and then grow upon. You've got to have some solid footing somewhere, whether that be belief system or spirituality or whatever. And, if you don't have that, I think you're in deep trouble, quite frankly. And I think, unfortunately, too many people have given up on teaching the basics and foundational principles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, that's interesting. I think, yes, to the foundational stuff. I think that takes me into the sport world where, especially natural athletes who they're just very good and they pick up stuff very quickly, have a tendency to want to move on a little faster than what they need to because they haven't really locked in those fundamentals, because the fundamentals tend to be boring. Same thing in martial arts. You get people who are bored doing the fundamental movements, but when you do them over and over again, paying attention to it with deliberate practice, they become a part of you in a way that allows you to expand on them. it's like the idea of learning how to do it right before you learn how to do it wrong. So we can innovate, we can challenge the status quo, and I think we should. But before we do, we need to really understand what the norm is and what the status quo is, and really gain proficiency in those basics before trying to shift and move and challenge and innovate.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Consistency for me is exactly what you just talked about. How do you get better? You have to consistently do maybe the same drill over and over again, whether it's in martial arts and speaking and writing, in anything. Think about how long we've been walking on the earth. Are we getting better with the way we walk? Do some people even pay attention to it? Some people walk pigeon-toed. Some people walk with their toes facing outward. Some people focus so much on the walk that they've made a profession out of it. Fashion models. They go to walking school, would you believe it? I've known some who've actually had to walk for like a long time just so they present well when they're showing off the designer outfits that they're showing. So every little aspect of what we're doing, somebody is becoming proficient at it because of consistency, because of that diligence that we have to put into our craft.
Well, one thing too, I think is important to remember is that we can talk about mastery and development and improvement of things, of doing. But for me, the being part is as important. So if I want to be generous, or I want to be curious, or I want to be open-minded, these are things that may not come naturally to most people. And we certainly aren't that way, whether we want to or not, all the time. So for me, that's an area of improvement that is equally valid. It's not necessarily about skill development and execution. It's also about us development and execution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is a great point. I actually have a video coming out later today, or I shared that I didn't realize that I was stuck in the doing, and the doing that I was doing was creating a social media post and realizing that an hour and a half had gone by. And I thought to myself, that's unacceptable to spend that amount of time creating one post. So I said, who am I being? And I realized, I became aware that I was being the teenager sitting in English class, trying to get it right, not make a mistake so I can get that A. And then when I became aware of that, it's like, let me reset. Who am I? I'm a woman business owner that's looking to make an impact. And once I shifted who I was being, then I suddenly got out of the perfectionism, and it's like, this is good as is. Let's just post it.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really focus on with a lot of my clients is what I heard and what you just said is, what is the definition of success? What is right? And success could be the perfection and the A, and everybody's saying, oh, what a great post. Or it could be, a whole different definition of success as defined by you. And that's something that we all have to come to grips with. So I know that particularly with the athletes that I work with, but it's the same thing with corporate, with first responders, with educators. We can have definitions of success that largely involve comparisons with other people. And the problem with that is we can't control the other people. And sometimes it's better for us to back up a little bit and really just take stock of us. What is success for us? What are the different ways that we can define success physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, and even spiritually?
I think a lot of times success, or that definition, whatever is accepted, puts you on the hamster wheel of life. It's like, oh, wow, I did that. I'm successful. Now it's time for another success, another success. It's actually one of my books. I talked about stop striving for success, start striving for significance. And significance is the meaning behind the success. To a certain extent, done is the new perfect. Keep on moving forward. You're going to be off course far more than you're on course. be off course far less often, learn along the way and go do that. So I agree with you again, Dr. Brian. The fact is that we get caught up in the illusion of somebody else's acceptance of how we produce that piece versus, your acceptance of it or your desire behind it. And it's like, know your intent. It's not about others' approval of what you've done. It's about your intent behind what you've done. High intention, low attachment. High intention of imparting something great, low attachment as to what that means for you or for anybody else, quite frankly. Go make it happen.
Yeah. I love that.
Let me share a story with you guys about posting. I have a friend of mine who some of his posts get 26, 28, 30 million views in a week. And usually he works maybe because he's a high caliber and he makes tons of money on YouTube from it. And he'll spend an hour and a half on a post like you did, Nikki. And he'll get those kind of views. But then one day he said, oh, I'm going to do this. He went into production for 3 weeks. This guy's also a celebrity and so forth. And he's telling me he went into this production for 3 weeks and he thought it was going to be like the biggest hit. He got less than 1,000 people looking at that video that he wasted 3 weeks of his life. He spent tons of money. He paid people to produce it, the whole deal. And then he had a video that he basically worked for 20 minutes and he had it in back burner. And he goes, you know what? I'm just going to throw this up there. That was his biggest video. And he's like, oh my God, look what I did. I wasted 3 weeks of my life, spent tons of money. And on this one that I didn't spend much time and they didn't even think it, I didn't even personally, he thought it was no good, but it was his own idea of success. And it's the success that other people see that really is going to define how we're seeing in the world. So sometimes when we do spend that amount of time on a post or an appearance, it may not be what the other people want. They're the ones that are driving that. So if we go to the movies and they spend $100 million on a movie and it flopped, whose fault is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's happened plenty of times.
Oh, yeah. I've been to some. I've seen some. I'm like, oh, my God, what did I go to this movie for?
Right.
I just wasted an hour and a half of my time. Oh, my gosh. And I love movies. I mean, oof, they're incredible.
Again, I think a big part of that is the addiction to approval, right? Is being truly addicted to, oh, geez, did I get a like? Did I do? And I mean, Sifu, you and I have had this conversation about, books and, how many people have read and whatever. Yesterday on LinkedIn, somebody posted, I'm rereading my favorite book of all time. And it was mine. It was like, wow, that is cool. And then I went, but nobody else has responded to his post. Okay, take the first win. Don't, you don't need the rest of them, right? And so again, I think it happens to all of us. And I think we'd be naive to think that it doesn't. The question is, how long do you let that last and do it? I mean, again, I think that the biggest thing is the high intention part, is the putting the right stuff out for all the right reasons at the right time, the very best you possibly can. A quote that I share daily is Mother Teresa. If you can't feed 100, feed one. It actually is a repositioning quote for me, because if you can't achieve that 100 likes or the 100 this or the 26 million, maybe it's the one person that is going to truly change the planet. And we're all great at a lot of things, but I think we all suck at mind reading. We don't know who's who, right? It's hard to identify.
Well, the other side of that too is we don't know who we're affecting with what we do. we know who comments, good or bad, but we don't know all of the effect. And that really became salient for me when I was working with kids. I was working with kids. I've been working with the kids since I was a kid, in various programs and coaching things and whatnot. And I ended up having one of the kids that I'd worked with when I was in early college. He contacted me about 10 years later. I was living in Los Angeles, and somehow or another, he found my information and he said, "Hey, do you want to link up?" And I said, "Yeah." And we got together, and he told me something I had no idea at the time. He said, you don't understand the effect you had on my life. Like because I used to take him out, I'd take him to Opryland back when it was a theme park, not a mall. And we would go shoot pool or bowling, or I would just take him out to go do stuff. He had a single mom, and he was getting in trouble in school, and I was trying to help out. But he said, "You had no idea the effect that you had on me. My mom was getting hit by her boyfriend at the time. I was getting hit. There was all kinds of abuse. There were all kinds of things happening. I don't know if I would have been alive if I didn't have you in my life at that point." That's what he told me. And I had no idea. Again, I was just taking a kid out. We were having a good time. And I've been a foster parent I was a foster parent for 4 years. I'm not anymore. And it's the same kind of thing. You hope that what you say and what you do has some influence, but a lot of times you just don't know, and you're never going to know. So just understanding the rationale, that underlying motivation of why am I doing this? It can't be for the likes and the accolades. Not in most situations. You're just not going to get it. Even though there may be a lot of people out there who really enjoy what you're doing. They're just not saying so. They're just not overt about it. And I think that's important to remember too.
Yeah, very powerful. You never know where your influence impacts someone, and it can be life-changing for them. Meanwhile, you had no idea. This is why we have to do what we do every day, right? All four of us. And anybody else out there who is making an impact, please continue. We need you. We need you, Dr. Brian. We need you, Scott. We need you, Nikki, to keep making the impacts that changes somebody's life so that they realize that they're worth more, that they have value. I hear so many people saying, "Yeah, I'm not worth it. I can't do that." I'm like, stop saying those things. The most important thing is to say, I am worthy. Let's talk about East meets West. What does that mean to you guys?
Well, to me, my book, Begin Again, utilize the wisdom of Eastern and Western ideologies to achieve your full potential. For me, where that came from was I spent a lot of time in my graduate program studying Western science, Western journals, psychology, etc. Not so much philosophy, but then maybe about 7 or so years ago, I started to get into the philosophical side of it as well. And that brought the East into it. And what intrigued me was the overlap. It's they're pitted against each other a lot, East versus West, and East is this and West is that, but there is so much overlap between what I read in various Buddhist and Hindu texts, Taoist texts, and then Western philosophy. This idea that Herodotus put out 2,000 years ago, no man steps in the same river because it's not the same river and he's never the same man. That's impermanence. That's how the Buddhists, that's impermanence. That's what it is. Everything always changes. So there are so many different things that overlap in those worlds that it was really interesting to me to find those similarities, to find those places where the Eastern and Western people, they in completely separate parts of the world, literally thousands of years ago, were saying essentially the same things.
I mean, it's interesting that what you shared there, because what came to me is that's those foundational principles. And it didn't matter whether they were East or West, they're foundational. And when you start to put that all together, Sifu, you and I have talked about this, in martial arts, the forms. Do you fight doing a form? No. But does it give you the muscle memory where your hands are supposed to be, where your hips are supposed to be, where everything's supposed to be at that time? And so I thought that's really interesting, Dr. Brian, that you found that overlap. You're a much deeper thinker than I am, by the way, just in case you wanted to know. But I agree with the philosophy and what you're saying behind that. I think it's really cool that there is this overlap. I think human beings are human beings. I mean, they're, you know, the reality is one of my favorite quotes of all time was Ben Carson a number of years ago, when he said, as a brain surgeon, when I cut the skull open and I open up, the brain is gray and looks the same. Doesn't matter whether it's male, female, black, white, green, purple, we're all the same. And I think that's the interesting part about it all, is you really can be from any point in the world, and there's certain things that pull us together, and we should focus on the things that pull us together, not divide us.
Oof, I love that.
Yeah.
My God, you guys both so interestingly involved in East meets West. I love it. For me, I believe it's the philosophy that really touches, and I think that the beauty of when the East meets West is the West is complicated, and the East is complicated in a simpler form, because they say, you know what? It's easy. Just relax and look at one aspect at a time and breathe, right? So the breathing concept has really, for me, initiated the concept of slow down, take it in, and then the complicated will become easy to understand. And I think that philosophy has helped me tremendously, because I can take really complex things, but if I try to come from a Western mind, I can get kind of lost. But when I start to breaking up and breathe and look at the smaller picture and see the whole thing, to really focus on it, it really enlightens it for me, or should I say focuses it at a deeper level. So for me, when I see the East meeting the West, it's about the philosophy of absorb it, take it in. Yes, look at the whole thing, but then break it down piece by piece. It's almost like an engineering concept as well.
Well, the West certainly approaches things in that way, in the sense of this is all a thing that has been created, so let's deconstruct it to figure out what it's all about. The East tends to not look at it that way. It's everything is just connected. It just all is. It's the concept of the Tao. It just is. Everything just is, and it's all moving together in the ways that it does. And we as human beings are built the way we are to perceive things, to create concepts, to group certain pieces of energy together and call them trees and call them people, etc. and so forth. You know, the idea that you were talking about in terms of being present and being here in sport psychology, they talk about that a lot in terms of attention control, being able to identify what is most important now. Where does my attention need to be right now in this moment to be maximally effective? And that aligns with the idea of mindfulness, meaning I'm not caught up in the future or the past and the fantasies that I create about the future, or memories accurate or not that I bring up from the past. I'm present. I'm right now. But it is interesting too that almost in that same vein, there is a difference. And I teach both when I work with clients too, in the sense of, if I'm having counterproductive thoughts, if my thoughts aren't working for me, they're harming, not helping. Well, what do? Cognitive psychology tells me that I'm supposed to recognize that and then change my thoughts, switch my thinking in a different way. Whereas Eastern philosophy just tells me, look, the thoughts are impermanent. They arise and they disappear. They're ephemeral. They're short-lived. So just recognize that it's there and then watch it disappear. And you don't have to try. You don't have to make any effort toward altering the thinking. You can just simply recognize what is, and it will move on in a different direction when it does. So that is a difference between the two, but I think both are valuable. I think sometimes it is useful to recognize when our thinking is counterproductive and put, in the way that we can, a more productive thought into our mind. But I think other times it's probably we're better served by letting go and acknowledging, yes, this thought has arisen, just like the itch in my arm has arisen, and it will disappear of its own accord. That's how that works.
What came to mind when you were saying that is Aikido, right? Is using the energy of the other to defend or to do whatever, right? Is allowing the flow to happen, and very much so. I think it's interesting when you come to the East versus West. I think West is more tactical, right? It's like we've learned how to do all these things, so therefore, because we learned how to do them, we need to do them. And the reality is sometimes that's not the fact. Again, I think if the simpler concepts, high intention, low attachment, is a very simple concept.
Mm-hmm.
People don't implement it very well most of the time, but it's actually a very simple it's, hey, from my heart, I'm going to put out the best things I possibly can. And I do that with the intention to be of service. Now, whether they land for you or not is not the next step in the whole thing. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. Same thing for me, right? So again, what you're saying, it makes so much sense. Is there? I think sometimes we attach, because of the busyness of the West, we attach this. Well, we've got to have this approval, or we've got to have these different things. But at the same time, it's like if you're solid in your intention, I think that's more of an East strategy or technique or process, whatever you want to term it, to just go, I know that I'm putting out the very best possible material I can with what I know at this time. I'm going to continue to do that and just allow it to land wherever it lands.
Yeah, the Eightfold Path in Buddhism begins with right view and then progresses to right intention, and that's what it is that right view, meaning that the right perspective on the world, the right priorities being set, and then right intention or right thought, it's called sometimes, is all right. So is our mind focused on those things? Is that where our thinking is landing? But that actually overlaps with West too. There's a theory of motivation called self-determination theory that strongly emphasizes the importance of really connecting our core values and our core beliefs to the behaviors that we want to be motivated to do. So if we can align those values and behaviors, or values and beliefs, with the behaviors, then our motivation tends to be very strong. It comes from internal sources. We tend to be much more perseverant and persistent when we work on stuff. So even there's an overlap with the Western theories of how can I stay driven and happy in my life in directions that matter to me. Even there's that overlap with the East and the West.
Love it.
Yeah, so good.
Let me share this with you guys, if you don't mind. Take a look. Hi, I'm Sifu Rafael. What if I told you 90 days is all it takes to detox your body, clear your mind, and completely reset your life? Sifu's Mind-Body Method is a complete system that blends movement, mindset, journaling, nutrition, hydration, and fasting into one powerful experience. This is your invitation to get stronger, clearer, and more in control from the inside out. Click the link and join Sifu's Mind-Body Method today. Don't miss your chance to reset your life. I love the fact that Nikki and Scott are part of Sifu's Mind-Body Method. What do you guys think of it so far?
Well, I cut sugar out of my coffee. I was only putting like a tip of the teaspoon, maybe a quarter of a teaspoon. But when you mentioned to me that having that milk in my coffee doesn't stop my fasting, that it just slows it down, but the sugar stops it. I said, let me just eliminate the sugar. So I would say that was a positive.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
For me, just the awareness of fasting, of the intermittent fasting, and time of last meal. And I have just set, I'm going to run at least a 12-hour minimum. And in running a 12-hour minimum, I've been actually running about 14 hours. Because I set the 12-hour minimum. It's like, okay, I made that. Now I can do more. Right? So, but again, just the understanding, it's amazing. People say knowledge is power. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge in action is power. And
applied knowledge.
Applied knowledge, right? And so it's been very interesting, because what's happened is it just becomes top of mind. And so again, those things that are at the forefront, what we focus on, we get. Amazing how that works.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for your testimonials. Kind of, I'd love to jump into this part of our conversation today, or make it this final part, which is heart meets hustle. What does that mean to you? Is it your heart that meets the muscle, or is it your mind that meets the muscle? Just questioning for
you. I think it depends on who you are and what your philosophies are. I teach all the time that sales or presentation or the desire to create authentic relationship is not a intellectual tactical process. It's a heartfelt, strategic, relational process. Again, who are you being, right? I mean, my logo is 2 S's that form a heart. Duh. I mean, so for me, it's, again, heart to me ties with intention, right? The desire to be of service to other people could it be an intellectual or tactical decision? Of course it could. I think then you've got to work at it all the time, because I don't think that's who you're being. I think that's what you're trying to maybe implement. Where when it's from the heart, and there's a heartfelt cause or reason behind it, I think the hustle is going to be there, because the internal drive. It's the difference between motivation and inspiration. Motivation is an outside in activity. It only lasts as long as the motivator is around. Inspiration is an inside out activity. It's your why. It's what goes. That's your heart.
Oof, love that. Thank you for that. Dr. Brian, what are your thoughts?
I have a couple. I think that when I hear that heart meets hustle, it's what I was just talking about earlier, which is aligning values and beliefs with action, with the behaviors, because the heart part is, what do we care about? What really matters to us? What's important to us? And then the hustle is the action part. What are we doing in our daily lives? And if there's alignment there, then there's well-being. So that's one thing. And then the other is a line from one of my favorite poems. I'm not a poem guy. In fact, most of them that I read, I have no idea what they're talking about. But this one I absolutely did. And it's called If by Rudyard Kipling. And there's a line in there that says, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, meaning I'm going to spend some time in my head. I'm going to think, but the purpose of the thinking isn't to just think. It's like you were talking about earlier, the knowledge and action part. I need to think, I need to process information, but that isn't the sole goal. I don't need to just sit around thinking about stuff. I need to do it as well.
Yeah, I love it. Nikki, your thoughts?
My thoughts is, it's going back to what I shared earlier with realizing that I was being the teenager and not the woman making an impact. It's connecting to what's important, what's aligned with me, and letting go of expectations or outcomes or what other people are going to think, and just do you, just be you. So before taking that action, aligning with who you want to be and what's important to you, and taking action from the heart, in my experience, has always led to better results.
Love it. For me personally, go ahead. Somebody was going to say something. Okay, I'll say it. For me, it heart meets muscle. I like to change it instead of hustle, because if you're passionate about it, if your heart is in it, I'm going to say heart meets excitement. I'm excited to do this. It's not like I have to do it. Oh, I gotta hustle. Oh my gosh. When my heart is in it, man, I am super excited to do something. And people say, wow, he hustles so much. And I'm like, not really. I'm just having a blast. I'm living the life I'm supposed to live. God has given me these gifts so I can have this type of life, so I can inspire other people, so I can push through whatever it is that is happening in my life. But for me, I don't see it as hustle. I've never seen it as hustle. Some people look at me and they go, wow, you do so much. And I'm like, I don't do enough. I don't do enough. I know there's more I can be doing. So I'm always looking for what's next so I can inspire and motivate others, because my whole purpose in life is helping. And that's where my heart is.
Well, I
Beautifully
think,
said.
oh, go ahead, Nikki.
No, I was saying beautifully said.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I think that's the, it's know thyself, right?
Yeah.
Know what makes you tick along the way. I'm fascinated by Dr. Brian because it reminds me of back in the day when I was asked to help create a sales training manual for somebody, and I was working with another member of our team that was highly educated and knew all the names to all the things. I just knew how to do it. I learned it at the street. I didn't learn all the fancy stuff, but it's like, Dr. Brian, I feel validated. You're making me feel awesome here. Like I actually maybe know a thing or two, but I don't know it in the technical form like you do. But I congratulate you. I think the delivery of it is so succinct and is really helpful in all this, because again, we all receive information in different ways, and it's actually helping me grow. So that's the fun of doing shows like this. Is there? Again, I might be mature, but the fact is I'm still learning, right? And today's going to be a great day. I've already learned a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the things that I tell people all the time when I'm teaching is that the stuff that I'm going to talk about, most of it you probably already know. You just don't know you know it. You don't have a name for it. There's not a concept that's there, and you don't know how to talk about it. And although you're using it or doing it, it's probably not as efficient or as effective as it could be, because you don't have a language for it or an intentional way to implement it. So I point that out all the time with the stuff. Like, for example, the concept of cue words. Some people haven't heard of cue words. They're just words or phrases that can direct your attention to where it needs to be at any given moment. But we talk to ourselves all the time. And we try to move our attention using that self-talk. So that's not a new thing that people have never done, but some people haven't thought about it in terms of, okay, well, in this particular situation where I'm encountering this particular challenge, that actually might be a pretty good skill to use. And here's how I might be able to do that. So with the language and the understanding of the thing, it allows people to implement it more fully. So I tell people all the time, it's entirely possible that you'll sit and listen to me talk for however long I'm gonna, and you will learn no brand new information. But you will walk away with a framework and a better understanding of what these concepts are, hopefully, so that you can go out the door and use these tools and these concepts and just strategies more effectively.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love the self-talk. I caught somebody doing self-talk. We talk to ourselves, but we're not talking out loud. And I caught somebody many years ago talking out loud to themselves. And at first, it was a friend of mine, and I thought they were talking to me. And I said, did you were you talking to me? And they're like, no, I'm just talking to myself. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, but you're doing it loud, so I'm hearing you. And then I said, tell me more. I was very interested why they felt like they had to talk. And they said, because I was reasoning and I needed to hear it, not internally, but I needed to hear it externally so that I can make sense of this thing that I have to handle. And it was a situation they were going through. And I said, wow, that was really interesting. And I loved the fact of how they were understanding a problem before they entered into the problem they had to handle.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the external sound of their own voice that helped them understand it even before they had a conversation with the person they were supposed to talk to. And I thought that was pretty cool. And I thanked them for it. And then I said, never mind me, keep talking. I don't want to interrupt that incredible strategy that you're going with, because it's helping you. And I just thought it was brilliant.
Well, that's one of the things I think is really interesting about the mind as well. Is I taught for the military. I taught a train the trainer course for a long time, and it was always interesting to me that I said, you can read this stuff, you can listen to me talk about it, you can write it down, you can go over it in your head, but unless you actually speak it, when the time comes for you to present, it's going to come out a big jumbled mess. So it's just funny how the mind, or, the opposite too, is one strategy that works for me. And I still use it to this day. And it works for a lot of people to just get things straight in your mind. A coping mechanism is journaling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why writing down my thoughts affects me differently than just thinking my thoughts or even talking my thoughts, but it does.
Mm-hmm.
And so recognizing those different strengths and weaknesses that we might have with regard to those various medium and use those media appropriately, talk to ourselves when we need to, write stuff down when we need to, just think in our minds, kicking stuff around when we need to. There's benefit to all three if we understand ourselves well enough to know which to use when.
Yeah, I love that. This friend of mine was also asking themselves questions as if they were the other person. I was like, that's pretty cool stuff. By the way, what a great conversation. We have come to that point where we are at the end of the show, and we don't want it to end, but time is has come upon us. Dr. Brian, we'd love for everybody to find out what they can expect when they go to know more about you. Your website is going across the bottom. You have 45 seconds to share, my friend.
Okay. Yeah. No, I tend to work with people in high stakes environments. I help people eliminate, not deal with, eliminate stress, pressure, deal with motivation, burnout challenges, and just enhance performance and overall well-being in these high stakes environments. And I use the words high stakes intentionally, not high stress, not high pressure. Those don't exist. There are no high pressure jobs or high stress situations. There are simply situations and jobs. And whether we experience stress and pressure in those moments, whether we encounter burnout in those environments, is entirely up to us and how we perceive and operate within those situations. So I do workshops, I do keynotes, I do individual and group coaching around those topics. It can be one-off deals. I also work on retainer for some organizations, first responders, educators, like I said before, corporate environments. So that's what I do. And if anything that I've said here or any of that interests you, please visit the website. I would love to have a conversation with you. Send me an email, brian@brianhiteglobal.com. Love to talk.
Perfect. Thank you, my friend. Scott, it's your turn, my friend. Tell us what somebody can expect when they reach out to you.
Easiest thing to say is ditto. But basically, I'm a sales guy and a sales trainer. But everything in life is a sale. Every time we open up our face, a position is coming out for somebody else to consider. That's the first part of a sale. So the first thing I do is I help people reframe an understanding that selling is actually serving. People overcomplicate it. It's only 4 words: identify a problem, provide a solution. Very simple. So I specialize in helping people reframe the entire process. In the sales acumen, they're going to sell more with less effort at higher margins for a longer period of time. If any of that interests you, that's a learnable trait and learnable skill to do it. The exact same thing happens with your communications. If you don't know how to talk to people, you're going to live a lonely life, and you're not meant to live a lonely life. You're meant to live a very social, very active. There are 8.5 billion people on the planet, and I'm pretty sure they've figured out how to make more. It's going to continue. So I work to help people be able to communicate their messages easier, better. I do it through training, through training groups, speaking to large audiences, coaching, one-on-one group, everything like that. And I agree. I do the exact same thing. I work on retainer for some organizations, and we do it other ways for other people. So if any of this interests you, please reach out. I want to help you achieve your goals. None of it is about me. It's all about you and what you want to achieve and why you want to achieve it. And I take years of knowledge, wisdom, expertise, experience, and let you borrow it. In fact, you can have it. I'll give it to you. So.
By the way, you're also a keynote speaker, and you've spoken into thousands of stages. You're somebody that I'm just thrilled that we're friends. Nikki, you're up, my friend.
Thank you, Sifu. So yes, I'm Nikki Gangemi, personal trainer for your mind and owner of Mindful Matters. And I work with high achievers, specifically doctors, lawyers, and financial professionals who put a lot of pressure on themselves. And I help them to reset their mind, their energy, and level up that self-talk. Really just changing the way they see themselves so they can show up differently, confidently, and more in control of what they can control in life. And I do a monthly experience. It's the Reset Lab for high achievers. And the next one is coming up on May 15th. So I will share the info in the comments.
Love it. Love it. I'm Sifu Rafael. What can I say? I love helping. And one of the things I'm helping a lot of executives and so forth is to reset their life by detoxing their gut and their brain. So we do a lot of journaling, like Dr. Brian was talking about, because journaling allows you to see what you're doing all day long and to reflect and review. Every day is a new opportunity. So come join us on the Sifu's Mind Body Reset, if you will. And we look forward to seeing you on the next show. Do me a favor. If you like this show, if you enjoyed it, and I don't know why you wouldn't have exceptional people on this panel, go ahead and share it with other people. Do yourself a favor. Listen to it again. There's so many great information and nuggets that were shared today. Thank you, everybody. Have yourself an exceptional rest of your day. Make today an incredible day because life is beautiful. Take care, everyone.